can move on to this part. Because if you're getting off, you have to make sure
Sorry,
we're doing all the shop.
Did you hear back from Matt? You? Okay. They obviously went with their first,
Oh, it's the DJI.
the boss's friend that was a US that he didn't want to initially go with because
Yeah.
How are you doing?
it's like way overpriced for what they got. So they've obviously gone with that path, which
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. This is the info pack as well.
Yeah.
Just say employee versus contractor guide sheet and then just a couple other bits and pieces. Are you guys a team?
Yes.
We are, yes.
Yeah, nice. What's your business?
Our startup's called Airshare.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're ride sharing empty space on scenic flights and charter flights in
Oh,
Australia.
that's so
awesome.
good.
Yeah,
That's
DJ.
really cool because I saw a little snippet about like that's how you can save some money and that's really great. It's alright.
That's right. I just want.
You guys a team?
Yeah, yes we are a team. We're a team.
All four.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can go for.
Still the info pack too, just
No,
looking
I
up contractor versus employer guide and just a couple other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
Didn't see you Fridays all day.
It's been playing first. Mummy's birthday. So
I guess we could all like go around and introduce all our services for like a nice consistent group.
So what's due today that you'll progress?
Yeah. How are you going? Just a contractor versus employee guide, so just other little comments. So do we all know each other or? Yeah, it's a pretty big space, right? So, yeah, nice. I started working in River City Labs a couple of years ago, so I get sort of like the startup culture in space. Yeah, we're now in Middleton, so we're growing and yeah, finally got an established space. But yeah, it's a big journey when you start your own business. It's pretty huge, so it's pretty exciting to be. I love being part of like, you know, entrepreneurial groups and hearing about what they're up to and that kind of thing. So that's really awesome. I thought maybe we'd just like go around and just introduce ourselves so I can just like know what sort of business is in the room, and I plan this to be like quite an engaging chat. So you can ask me questions about things that you want to know. So like I'm going to touch on a few areas that I definitely, some information I really want to convey to you, but I'm happy to sort of then go to like a Q&A style, and you know, if you guys have questions about this stuff, consider it like free advice. So I'm happy to sort of answer your questions and all the problems that you're facing in sort of this area that we're going to be focusing on today. So do you guys want to start and just say your name?
Sure, I'm Garunga, this is Jack. We're the co-founders of Airshare, and we ride share empty space on charter flights and scenic flights around Australia.
I'm Jack as well. Different Jack though. Meal prep, company name's Existo, simplify work week meal planning, so recipe, shopping list, and the instruction and tools to do it. So simple, portion controlled, making life easy.
Hi, I'm Anita. I'm going to make like a copywriting studio, so we write content and develop like brand strategies for brands from small businesses to like organisations.
Yeah, nice.
So anything from website copy to brochure to pitch decks to
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
I'm Ajala, I'm the founder of Sortal, which is artificial intelligence for images and house memory. So it's used both in the tools but also in the workplace to retain corporate knowledge for businesses.
I'm James, Red 30, and we are a WordPress and search engine marketing agency.
Oh, nice. I need that.
I'm Steph, and I run an info product business simplifying marketing for small business owners.
Cool.
I'm Tim, I'm the founder of RaffleTix. RaffleTix is a platform for running raffles.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm Mike, I'm the founder of Beyond Billables. We make lawyers better people.
Tough job.
We do branding, marketing for innovative and disruptive firms in the legal industry.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've seen some of your stuff on Facebook and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Are you a lawyer?
I was, yeah.
You were? Okay, cool. So we were talking something in what area?
Employment.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
And I laugh because I wrote something like this last week for a client, actually.
Yeah. Do you guys sell a similar kind of package? No.
No, I don't do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's cool. If you do, that's fine.
No, I don't.
There's always room for, different approaches. So yeah, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I don't know where Sarah is or whether or not that we're starting officially.
I think it's
filming.
it's recording.
Oh, it's recording. Okay, we're not live, are we?
It is.
Oh, it is.
It says live.
Like, as in, it's not like a live feed somewhere.
It's an internal live feed for fishies members,
So
yeah.
there might be people watching us.
Maybe.
It's good for
Sad
Facebook,
people.
There's 9,000 people watching.
Yeah. No pressure. I don't really like being on film, but that's all right. Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Serena Eggers-Stable, and I'm the founder of Business Kicks. So my background is basically graduated quite young from university, scholarship at Bond University, so I was out in the workforce. Well, from like about 14, so I've been working quite some time. And so basically while I was at university, I worked for an entrepreneur. So I had like a bit of an entrepreneurial kind of background. I don't really love the whole, 9 to 5 kind of thing, although in a law firm it's more like 7 till midnight. So that didn't suit me, but subsequent to that I worked in the commercialisation office at Griffith University. So I was part of like negotiating commercial contracts and all that kind of thing. And then I worked in a couple of law firms, two really large law firms, and then also worked in a specialist corporate commercial firm also. So basically after that I didn't love big law firm life. I don't know whether or not you can relate to that, but
I worked for Clayton Years.
yeah, right, yeah, so Malison. So you sort of get it's a interesting lifestyle and it really didn't suit me. So basically I always had the vision to create something useful for the world. I never imagined that I would create business kits. It kind of just happened. Effectively I always wanted to run a business with a bit of a purpose or something. So I've always felt like when I was in law firms, I'm always going to leave and create something else, but I'm kind of like an investigator. Like I need to learn how the systems work, how business works, learn about corporate commercial employment stuff, because I knew that to run any organisation I'm going to need to know this stuff. So I basically left Big Law without a job, and I had someone I knew was setting up a law firm, and basically said, do you want to come do like a little bit of work? And then that turned into running a law firm. So ran a law firm for a couple of years with another guy, and I was used to working for big businesses. So when you work at Clayton Years or Malison, your clients are Telstra, BHP, that kind of thing. Also at Griffith, like I'm used to kind of like big organisations with big policies and procedures and systems, and they don't have a whole lot of employment issues and that kind of thing because everything's just so regulated and done the right way. So I was used to kind of those systems. Then, working in the boutique law firm, I started working for small business, which was much more fulfilling. I loved it. Like I loved getting in there and sort of figuring out what was going on with their business and helping them and actually seeing like an actual impact in their business, as opposed to when you work with those huge companies, it's just like, you don't know, have a clue whether or not what you're doing is that helpful sometimes. So, working for those small businesses, I just saw a pattern of litigation and problems coming up again and again, and I saw a pattern of missing documents, essential documents were missing. Most small to medium business in Australia, I can tell you, it's very surprising. Even large businesses, they could be turning $24 million, like turning over like that kind of money. They don't have policies, procedures, good employment agreements, services agreements, that kind of thing. So building a business is kind of like building a house. If you don't have a good framework in place, at some point you can get away with it and you can just make money, but at some point when you get so many staff or you've got so many customers, like it's going to come crashing down. Even simple things like having the wrong ABN registered, having multiple ABNs. I've had situations with the construction business where like the wrong ABN is like with the wrong QBCC license, the building and construction license that they need. and then consequently they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars and not getting paid because they're operating illegally. But it was an administrative thing, right? It's just an ABN. You think to yourself, that's not a big deal. That company was a multi-million-dollar company, went into administration after those kind of issues. So I'm sure you're sort of familiar with what I'm talking about here, that little things can turn into big things as you grow. So basically, when I was running this law firm, I saw a gap. It sort of started with actually a solar company on the Gold Coast. They were growing quite rapidly. They had a lot of staff and they had a lot of cars, like vehicles and that kind of thing. And the CEO said to me, the staff don't respect the cars. Like they just keep crashing them. We keep getting they're doing, they're speeding and that kind of thing. Everything was like out of control in lots of areas of their business. And I said to the partner that I worked with, hey, we don't really draft policies and procedures for companies. We more just do like the employment dispute side. I have experience, and my ex-boss from Griffith University, actually semi-retired, she's got experience in drafting these policies for Griffith, So can we start drafting kind of standard policies for these businesses? Also, they can't really afford it. They can't really afford all that they need. So do you mind if on the side I start selling in a separate company policies and procedures and all that kind of thing to help these businesses get a bit more organised? Because I'm seeing a real gap here with how they're running their business. And he's like, yeah, sure. He didn't mind. So I started doing that on site, and it was stable consultants. And then in time, I was like, actually, the next client needs, these policies or these procedures are missing, or they don't have a system. They're not filing the way that they're organising their documents. They're not filing things properly. And it's just dispute after dispute after dispute. There's just litigation. And then honestly, when you get into litigation, it can just completely destroy your whole business. It takes the time and the energy of going through a dispute is just really traumatic for a business owner. Not only is it expensive, but it just takes you away from what your core business is. So you're just in absolute mess. I don't know, is anyone here you don't have to disclose it, but been in a dispute before, been involved in one? Well, that's great. But it's not fun. So you have a great relationship with someone, like an employee or someone's working for you, think it's all good, and then suddenly you get letters from Fair Work, the ombudsman or whatever, just saying we require all these documents, you haven't, you need to produce all of this, you've had a complaint against you. And at that point, it's just so painful. It's also very emotionally draining. I don't like dispute work. I don't like being involved in it because I find it to be it's just stressful, basically. So the thing is, I'm quite surprised at the increase in disputes in Australia. I think we're becoming a little bit more like America, especially with the way that work cover works, and people can make claims and all that kind of thing. Our system here is quite similar in that sense in terms of personal injury to sort of the American system. In New Zealand, it works differently. In other countries, it works a little bit differently. If you're injured, the government kind of covers some of those fees, but here it's scary. So the one message that I want to get across to everyone, if you didn't walk away with anything, is that if you're here and you're just taking on contractors or interns, be very, very careful, because I've got some heartbreaking stories that I've been involved in. Small businesses, just 1 or 2 people doing, everything's good, right? But they didn't have the right documents in place. They didn't take the right steps, didn't have right insurance, and subsequently they've had to mortgage their house, and they're paying back these kind of work cover claims or fees, for a long period of time, and they're just completely defeated by it. So what I want to do here is just educate you today about those kind of things to think about, because a lot of people don't understand. The people that I've had in these cases have no idea about this stuff. But funnily enough, a lot of lawyers don't even know about it. It's not until you're involved in these cases you really understand the risk that you're putting yourself, the risk that you're putting the risky situation that you're putting yourself in, because you don't really know what you don't know. So yeah, can I just get a sense of who here has interns, employees? So who here takes on interns? Yeah, 1. Employees? Okay, just contractors. Casual employees. Yeah, okay, awesome. Does everyone here, you don't have to answer it, but do a lot of people have work cover insurance? Great. Excellent. For those of you that don't have work cover insurance, this is the story that I just want to give you, just so you kind of can think about getting work cover insurance, basically. So I had a lovely business kits client. She is now runs like a healing studio, and yeah, she said to me, I've come to you because I really want to get some incentives in place. Like, I don't have a lot of money, but I'm really worried about having service providers and masseuses and all that kind of thing working in my business because in the past I had a really bad situation. I was like, okay, so what was that situation? And she said, but I started a real estate agency up. On the second day, I took on a contractor. There was no agreement in place, and that contractor fell over in the street and hurt herself. And I think she hurt her back. And she's like, and I had to close down my business, and I had to mortgage my house. And that was like $60,000, which was like all the money that I saved up my entire life. And I think she was like a middle-aged woman. So that's pretty devastating. Like $60,000 for anyone is still a lot of money. You've got to save up that money and mortgage a house. Like that is a huge hit, right? Just because she didn't get some simple advice or have like even agreement probably would have helped in that situation, but she just said no, they considered her an employee. She was under my direction. She was, acting with our business card. She had her name printed. That's something they look at. She was an employee. So in Australia, the way that contracts and employees looked at, it's become like most of the way that like the government looks at it, like the ATO and all that kind of thing. It really, like a lot of people that you're taking on are actually employees, but you think that they're contractors. And I know on the startup space, when you're getting going, you just want to take on contractors because it's, it's just like a much more simple way to take on workers. Equally, I had another case recently, which I actually was involved in. An elderly couple, just like weeks away from retirement, running like a small business, really like just a family business. Have been running that business, that particular business for 20 years. They took on someone who had their own ABN and said, oh, I'm a separate, they represented themselves as like a separate business. Like I'm an ABN, I've got like this background in, certain services. That person was working for them. They said that they aggravated their back during the work. So just she had a pre-existing injury, but it was just like an aggravation that subsequently work cover considered her still an employee. There was no contract. So they look at things like, is there a contract in place? Were they under the direction of the business owner, all that kind of thing? And they were like, no, she's an employee. She then made a separate claim. They allowed her. She was had a divorce and a hard life, or she had a hard time in her life. They had a family friend that had a piece of land, and they offered her basically the vacant piece of land, just out of the generosities of their heart, basically. And she said, as part of my employment, I was provided with this vacant land to put my van, and she made another claim to say she hurt her back while someone was helping her clear the land for that. So she just made a second claim and said, that was a part of my employment, and the wife in that situation went and just helped her clear because she was worried about snakes for her dog, helped her and said that I was whippersnippering the land, and during that I caused further damage to my back, and she made a separate claim. That's crazy, right? How do you guys feel about that?
No good.
Why you hate boys? Of course.
True.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think the struggle a lot of small business has, and sometimes it's even knowing the level that you should be insured to, and knowing those levels. There's really terrible work covers, really abysmal. I'm writing down, check my work cover insurance again.
Yeah.
Because, my team will laugh, but before the Christmas party, the day before the Christmas party, they're lime scootering and talking about lime scooting up there. I'm like, oh shit. I'm gonna check my work cover. But stuff,
Look, I'm on the same page as you, don't worry. I'm not a standard lawyer. I don't unnecessary, the way that it all works and the game that gets played, I'm not into that. I'm trying to do something different here. Totally. And that's equally the same thing, is we feel passionate about businesses getting what they need in place, because let's stay out of court, let's stay out of law firms. That's what Business Kits is about. Let's absolutely stay out of law firms, disputes. Let's put what we need in place so we don't have to enter that realm. Even we've just set up our own law firm, but we are all about, and I'm trained in that, getting people everything they need so that you don't end up in that space. And then don't necessarily use me, go use whoever you like, go use who works for you. This is not a full sales pitch, we let you know what we're doing, but go and use whoever, but just take this stuff seriously, because as you know, it is just an absolute nightmare. If you end up on work cover, or I've represented people in the Fair Work Commission, it is just an absolute nightmare of a situation. It's just like the amount of paperwork you've got to fill out too, it's just annoying, you know what I mean? And then you're there and you're just like, I was so like helpful to this parent employee, I was just so generous to them, and then you're there and you're sitting there and they're there and you're just like, are you serious? And then like I had a friend recently in his company, I told him, I was like, I'm a lawyer, I've got business kids, like I could put some place with you, but he's too busy. And he terminated someone the wrong way, and yeah, $33,000 he had to pay that. So yeah, this stuff does happen, and don't underestimate Australia and like how strong Fair Work is and how strong like they favour employees in Australia. It's just the way that it is. So okay, so I guess that this chat, that's just like a really long intro, but this chat is like giving you guys information about, you know, how to take on interns, because an intern is a great way to like test out people and build your business. So we can give you a lot of information about that and talk about employees and things to consider and how to effectively employ employees and how to like kind of screen employees and get the best out of your employees. So I can talk about that. And I can also talk a little bit more about like contractor versus employees, but can you guys give me some feedback about what you're here for, why you're here, what do you exactly want to know? What are you interested in? Are you guys looking to take on interns? Is that something that you don't know much about but you're kind of interested in? You're like, I would love to build my team, but I don't know how to go about that? Anyone?
Yeah, I'm interested
Unpaid
in
interns and stuff?
Well, no.
Or paid? Yeah.
Paid interns.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool.
I've
Anyone
Or
else?
both.
an arrangement, like I take a lot of interns through tertiary institutions, so
Yeah.
through UQ and QUT and
Yeah.
also Code Academy.
Yeah.
But there's like a little bit of paperwork involved where they're covered by their uni
Yeah.
insurance, but
Yeah,
then
that's right.
often they just want to stay working with us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure.
But you're outside the scope of that.
But
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of grey zone that falls into,
Yeah.
because they were under a previous arrangement and then it kind of just drags on.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
So,
Yeah.
so Michelle, is that because like it's a fixed term that you have with the uni, where they say it's like a 6-week period or something?
Yeah, some of it is, like some of it's part of their university requirements where you actually have to sign off on hours because they're supervised by a software engineer and it counts towards their degree. But other interns, it's just like a voluntary thing through the uni as an opportunity for them to give them work experience over the semester breaks and holidays and that kind of stuff. So some of it's like a 2-week arrangement, but I had one guy staying with me for 6 months. You know, just a couple of days a week because he wanted to and he's interested in machine learning. So,
Yeah. So, but the agreement that you had with the uni was originally for like a 2-week period.
Yeah, but it was like a 1-pager that they got signed off by the faculty saying they're going to go work for this company, but it didn't necessarily spell out the hours, but it was advertised through the appropriate university channels as an opportunity for them. So yeah, I'm just not quite sure that was great.
No, definitely. Yeah. And so with any of these relationships, like interns or contractors, it's just important to define a relationship, the scope. Like, you don't want to get in the grey because then they can be considered employees basically, and then there's a whole raft of things that can happen. So interns can then claim that, to be paid for their time and all that kind of thing. So you've got to just make sure that if you're taking on these sort of people, to sort of just make sure that that's like clearly defined. I just want to disclose, and I've sort of got to do this, like Business Kids is not a registered law firm, we sell templates. I am registered with 2 law firms with the Queensland Law Society, so if I'm getting anything that's kind of like legal in nature, it's through those firms and I can give you those details of what those firms are. We've registered our own firm, Legal Kits. We're just nearly finalised that, but if I'm representing myself as a lawyer, I just need to disclose that that's through, I'm registered with the Law Society and all that kind of thing, because Business Kids, I can't represent as a law firm, because we just sell template and guidance and stuff like that, so it's a bit separate. So interns are a great way to test someone out and build your business. Like I've had a lot more success in employing interns than I have with just directly employing staff. It's really tough when you take on, look, sometimes you need skilled staff, right? But it's really tough. I don't know what you guys have found when you hire employees, like just going through an interview process, it's like kind of tough to really gauge their quality or how it's going to go. I think a great way to build teams is to start with interns and then like shift them onto employment. Is that something you guys, if you haven't done it, that you've thought you might want to do? Yeah, a lot of motivation. So here we go. We've got Tanya and Roxanne both did intern with me, and they're now employees. And Stan just started an internship with me, but like on day 3 I was like, you're amazing, we're going to employ you after you finish your internship. We actually have created a full structure around interns, so we've got programs, so we've called it like a professional skills program or a marketing promotions program. We're not like a massive business, like we've got, you know, a few staff and that kind of thing, but we're still considered like, we're sort of like under 10 still. And yeah, we take on interns, and I'm just, like, it's been amazing. Just the really high quality students coming through, and I'm like, I can see, you know, some of them have come through with prior experience. So I've got a guy who's worked for like a really big startup for 2.5 years, but he's studying law and economics at UQ, and he's just amazing, but he knows all about like SEO, and you know, he's like actually helping us in both areas. So I just think you can look for students, but you can look at students with like work experience that just taken a long time to do their degree, and you kind of test them out, and then if it works well, you can take them on full time, and as your business grows in a startup phase, you can take them on as full time potentially at the end of their degree, so then you can keep it casual, you know. So I think that it's like an awesome way. So you guys will be interested in hearing a bit more about how you go about doing that. Is that all why we're here, kind of thing? Okay, so the first thing is where to find interns. So where do you guys go right now to find interns? Like the university? Yeah, that's a great way to find quality interns. Another way, if you just want to get going, someone told me about this, and when I started, I thought, oh, that's a bit odd, but like you can do one free Gumtree ad. Surprisingly, I found, well, I don't think Roxanne, I found Roxanne there. She's one of my best employees. Yeah, so like if you want to get going and you don't want to pay for a seek ad, just put it on Gumtree. Like you do it, like they had the job, whatever. I couldn't believe, especially in December when like people went, yeah, we put quite a few out on Gumtree as well. So we take them from different sources. Like we now with the universities as well. But I just couldn't believe like the amount of applications in December. We got like 40 or 50 from one Gumtree ad.
Wow. The uni job platforms are good for free as well. I've used them for 15 years basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, find amazing people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so like if you want a particular type of intern, you contact, well you guys do that, so what do? You contact?
Yeah, just the Law Society or,
But you can actually
whatever
just jump on
department.
and put a free ad up, and they'll email them to everyone in the faculty that you're targeting if they're after that. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Is that what we did? We were in touch with the faculties at the university. Sorry, these girls handle that now. So
yeah, we have to contact the faculty, and then like I've been contacting QUT and UQ. They're kind of very strict about that, so they have to approve the content you want to post, and before you can actually post anything.
You know, it's okay though. They'll do it in like 2 hours. They will approve it. But
they just take their steps. And so we've had like an amazing amount of like applications and that kind of thing, and that's how we're kind of like building our team right now, like based on those resources. So if you're doing, in terms of taking on interns and making sure it's successful, I think you need to put like a structure around it. So we definitely make our internship quite structured, and it also is like it's professional for them, and they feel like they're getting like all of our interns that have left, like we almost feel like we want to cry when they leave because they feel like a part of our team. I mean, I know that's extreme, but when some of them they're doing so much part of our team, and it's such a good experience that it's just being like, you know what I mean? But they're moving on. Some of them are moving on to other things, or they've got a different direction. They want to work at PwC or whatever, but they've interned with us, and we make sure that it's a valuable experience. So the basic rule with interns is the experience has to be more valuable for them than it is for the business. Like that's the sort of guideline. Now that's really hard to define, right? You actually can get them to do hands-on tasks for your business, but as long as it's like educational. And so the way that we kind of manage that situation is, well, one, we have, I'll hand this around. We've got like an internship checklist about all the different things that we need to check with each intern that we take on. And we put together like a comprehensive manual and program. So we introduce like our business and say, hey, welcome to Business Kits, this is who we are. We also don't want to we're quite busy, right? So we don't want to keep repeating ourselves. It's about our values, our mission, who our team is. We just put it all in a nice pretty document. And then here, we create a program. So, like we have a training schedule, which also is reflected like in our template unpaid internship fee. So this is for unpaid interns, by the way. So we talk about what the training item is. So it could be like, you know, social media and marketing, and then we put here the possible hands-on tasks subject to business requirements. So it might be like doing research into SEO, or doing research into like Facebook advertising, or creating like some content. But we would never get an intern to sit there creating like Instagram posts like all day. Like we just really try to be ethical about what we don't want to like, you know, be seen or to be taking them on for a ride in like free labour. So I really do try to vary what they're doing and switch it around. I know other people do it differently, but I'm really conscious of that. If we can see that we're taking them on for employment later, like I just said to them, look, we need to get your skill level up to a stage where you're employable. So we will like focus on them doing like, you know, more work. But yeah, we definitely do like hands-on tasks, and they learn from that. The feedback I'm getting from the interns is like, we love doing the hands-on tasks. We just want experience. We want feedback. You've got to have someone available to give them feedback. Like you've really got to have either yourself or staff, and you can't just like let them sit there for a week or two and then give them like no time. Like it's not the right thing to do, I don't think. Like you really need to sort of work with them. But basically, maybe just like hand this around. But basically, oh, you guys got that? Oh, sweet. I'll hand the program around then. But basically, yeah, you want to make it like an engaging experience for the intern. But that way you can kind of test them out. You know, you get a test, they test you, and you just see like whether or not they're the right cultural fit, skill fit, all that kind of thing. So I'll give you guys, if you want to look at the program, give you an example of the sort of program that we put together. And that also creates a structure for us. So if we're kind of lost with the interns and like what should they be working on, we'll kind of go back to the program. We're like, okay, so professional like email writing skills or whatever, and we'll just make sure client communication. So we've kind of like segmented for different interns. We've now broken it down, so we use that document, but we've now broken it down to like marketing and promotions, legal skills, and drafting and accounting and finance. So we're sort of like broken it up, and we like focus it just because our business is growing and kind of it is separating into departments itself. So we're just sort of like now it's a little bit more focused depending on but there's also professional skills in there. But you guys have skills that you might I guess that's a way of phrasing things. Like you all have skills in terms of dealing with customers. Like you all have something valuable to, I believe, to give these interns if you've worked before. So it's just about coming up with like an effective program. The other thing is, you should, so to answer your question before about, sorry, what's your name again? Magella, yeah. So to answer your question about if someone's at the university and they're outside the scope, so if it was just like a 7-day internship, you should then really have your own agreement in place, or you should be with the liaison with the university to extend that agreement, because this definitely defines a lot of things, like the fact that they're not covered by work cover, the fact that, you know, like the protection of your confidential information is important, making sure like their IP that they're creating during their internship is like going to be owned by the business. Like you don't want to end up in a dispute later on if they create something or they're a part of something. You want to make sure that you're protecting.
They've signed an NDA and IP signed deed with us in addition to their university paperwork, but I guess with the insurance side of it, like that I guess they think they're still covered. And I guess I do as well, but I guess I need to do it.
No, I think that's like, you're open there. Like you really need to either extend that with the university or put your own something in place. You want to make sure that, so that things like with the confidential information, like any business, like you want to make sure that if they're using their own laptops, that's okay, but that they're going to be deleting. So we actually have like a form at the end to say you've deleted, they sign something to say I've deleted everything off my laptop. So we, in our intro email, like we don't have enough workstation, like, you know, computers, like all the staff on the computer, so we actually say bring your own laptop, and that's fine, but we do ask them to sign something. Like our IP is very important to us, so we're not happy with them taking off with our stuff. But you need to have, it's really important to have an agreement in place with this stuff, because you can end up, you know, once they create something or they're subject to they actually are subject to all your business knowledge and ideas, and they take off with it, like that's concerning. So I think like these things tend to happen like when people sign agreements as well. It's amazing, like with the companies I've worked with that have employment agreements or contractors or like have policies in place or these agreements, it just happens way less. Like I see a dramatic reduction in claims. So for like a hair, like I had one client as a small business with a hair salon, and like each week they'd call me with a problem. And then once we put like our resources in place and got them all set up, like literally 3 years later they've had like no issues. And I just, this stuff just it's also preventative. Like it just people are like, I signed this, I'm not going to really push the limits here. I'm not going to run up, I've signed something. Like if you don't have that communication or people signing documents, it's just amazing how much more likely they are to just stretch the rules, and even employees to they will work outside of that. So lately we've had like a big construction business that we've been working for. We work for a lot of big construction businesses who, one tech as well, that's a bit more relevant. We've had like a big tech company and they're just exploding. And all the staff are just doing like crazy things, like they've got like secret commissions happening, like, you know, as you start to grow, like all these other little things start to occur, like secret commissions, and there's like conflicts of interest going on, they're stealing, they're leaving and going to another tech company, they're taking the IP with them. And we've just found when we put everything in place, but not just legal documents, like policies, procedures, like we put a framework in place, we just see like the reductions just, isn't it? Like even with our legal clients, like when we put it in place, it's like it all just goes away. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it just seems to really set the tone, like also from my experience, like if you're, like when I started my internship with Serena, like I was sent an internship deed as professional skill. It's like gives me an essence of the seriousness of the business, and it makes me feel like, okay, wow, like this is really, like there's structure here. I can't just walk around. And then the less structure you have, from what I've experienced in my short time here dealing with legal clients who have nothing in place, employees will just walk all over you if you do not give them authority in a sense. Like that's what I've really noticed. The documents just really create like an authority in a sense, so you have control and they know that, you know, in it relatively. Yeah, that's what we've experienced.
Yeah, so we do we use the program, and then at the end we have like a feedback session. Like so we have like an intern feedback, because we don't want interns walking around town saying, oh, we went to Business Kids and it was like a terrible experience. If they're feeling that, I want to know before they leave. So we have a little session with them for them to write like, how did you feel about us and how did you go? And so I can like identify a risk before it walks out my door. Because the last thing I want is Business Kits to ever end up with a Fair Work website or whatever, because we sell this stuff. So for me, I'm very like particular about this not happening to us. So I you know, and that's a great thing with employees as well. Like have a feedback session before they leave, because you can identify, if you can identify a problem and deal with it outside of like getting into sort of like a legal dispute, you're just in much better position. So you do things like that. Employees leaving, contractors leaving, like try to keep things on friendly. Like the more friendly and diplomatic you can keep things is always better. The more that you throw fire at people, they're going to throw fire back. So when you're unhappy with people, also like in termination, there's a way to go about that. That's like often, if you agree with me, like if you see it on your head, that's a lot more effective. Yeah, egos get bruised, you're going to be in dispute.
Pay what you owe.
Pardon?
Pay them what you owe.
Yeah.
Keep everyone happy.
Yeah.
It's way better than going down the track of being, you know, having those arguments and then being dodgy. So, yeah.
It really is. It really is. And also like thinking about when you're taking on stuff, like taking on people casually, and even, well, contractors if they really are contractors, but like casually getting work cover insurance and just taking on them casually and testing people out and then proceeding them to full-time employment is a great way. Like going just straight to full-time employment to me, I don't think I can even do that again, because I've just found it to be too much of a commitment. So you guys kind of get that, like when you've got staff and they're full-time, once they pass the probationary period, do you know what you've got to go through to terminate someone? Are you guys ever been employed and kind of get that? That like kind of, you're in a really permanent position. So casually, like you can more or less, most of the time, terminate someone quite easily, right? Without much notice, depending on their agreement, that kind of thing. When they're like permanent part-time or they're full-time, there's only 3 main ways to terminate someone. So that's going through performance review. So like, you know, issuing, like having unperformance meetings, issuing letters to them, and like that's always just awkward process to go through in terms of getting rid of someone. Serious misconduct, like if they do something like steal money or something really serious, commit some kind of fraud, then you can terminate them instantly, but then you've really got to make sure that you've got some evidence about that. Or redundancy, which can be a good, you know, way to terminate people if, you know, you're a small business especially, so if you've got under a certain amount of employees, the rules are a little bit more relaxed. But taking on a full-time employee is like a really permanent part-time or full-time employees is like quite a big deal, because like getting rid of them is hard. So yeah, keep people casual for a while until you're really confident that they suit your business and that they're not a risk then to your business, and that's like a better way to kind of, yeah. So like interns to casual, to kind of part-time, you know what I mean? Like you kind of, it's a good idea to kind of like just step people through. I don't suspect anyone in this, like I'm not even ready for that in terms of just sort of tested it, but I just don't even just take on full-time staff. Like I find it to be too much for me to just interview someone and take them on at this stage in my business, because yeah, although I can terminate them in probationary period, but it's very important again to have an employment agreement in place, so you can just terminate someone in their probationary period. So a lot of people don't have that in place, and as they become a bigger business, they're like, oh, well, we didn't sign the agreement, and I'm like, you didn't sign the agreement, now we've got to go through performance review, we've got to how like, well, there's no full rule on it, but like about 3 warnings, you've got to send letters, you've got to get lawyers, like it becomes very complicated if you don't do things properly and educate yourself in this space. So I'll send through like, anyway, feedback, great idea for like employees, interns, anyone that comes in your business, have a feedback session before they leave. Even if it's not through a document, just sit down and have a consult. How do you feel? And keep things on happy, diplomatic note. It's amazing how many disputes I feel like I've helped people avoid because through diplomacy, it's a better way than ending up in court. So that's like another piece of advice. Yeah, so I can go on and on about like employees and all that kind of thing in terms of how to, you know, engage employees, how to sort of, there's other sort of techniques and things to use in terms of like in, like for employment.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
the interns,
Yeah.
time limits,
Yeah.
what's reasonable?
Yeah, so there's no set guideline in terms of what's reasonable. It's just as long as they're still benefiting from the experience, in terms of like as long as it's still like an educational experience for them. We do 15 days. I know people do months and that kind of thing, and the intern's happy with that or whatever, but if I was doing that, I would probably be inclined to sort of have some communication writing, even like an email to say, hey, are you happy continuing, is this still educational for you? Because what Fair Work's going to look at is, was this an educational experience, or were they like using the intern for free labour, basically? So yeah, that's something that you might.
Yeah, I've been thinking about getting a videographer for a while now. It's a big call not to get an intern. It'd be great to test someone out, but in 15 days is probably a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we do 15 working days. That's what we kind of feel. We feel like after 15, probably could go a bit longer with some interns, but after 15, even 20 days, we start to feel like they've learned enough to start actually properly working now. So I still feel like they're training in that time.
What about, I mean, in terms of pay, like, what are the options?
In terms of paying interns, I guess it depends, like, in terms of, paying interns, I think that they're like, you need to call Fair Work depending on like the type of intern, the industry, you know what I mean, there's like different requirements, but like Fair Work's a great resource, so if you guys are ever unsure about something like that, in terms of pay, I just say like call Fair Work, because I think that there's different options depending on like if they're a student or their age and all that kind of thing, or the industry, so they like will look at that for you. It's kind of like hard to answer in terms of like really specifically, but basically, like it is totally legal to do like an unpaid to begin with, like that is totally fine. I do know people that go unpaid and then they kind of call Fair Work and then like extend it to like a paid situation. But yeah, you should just call Fair Work and get advice always. And that goes for employees as well. If you're not sure what you're paying people or what awards or level they sit at, Fair Work's a free resource, and that's something that business kids, we're trying to just tell people this. We're not here like the typical lawyers just wanting to get fees. We tell you in our guidance notes, you don't need lawyers for this. You need you need standard documents, but Fair Work is free. Employees, sure, not bagging like competitors, but companies like that, they're just using the Fair Work information. Like the Fair Work website is so comprehensive. You still need to get agreements and you still need to have documents, but what we try to do is guide people and say, hey, like empower you to manage this on your own, because it's not rocket science once you've got like the right systems in place. And instead of calling a lawyer, just call Fair Work and get like guidance on like what should I be paying. I've got a situation, employees like, you know, sometimes they'll say to you, depending on who you get at Fair Work, they'll say, well, just call, you know, get legal advice. Like there are times where you need legal advice, but if you see a problem, like just act early and just call, like, you know, use the free government resources that are available. That's not saying you don't need agreements, like you still do, but yeah, like a lot of lawyers will just call Fair Work for you. So you ring them with a legal problem, and then they'll say, oh, I've got this problem, and then they'll just go on the Fair Work website and call Fair Work, and then get the information, make a file note, and then report back to you, and then it's like $500-600 later. There's a little like industry secret, like that's the truth. So yeah. So in terms of employing staff, we think that you should really heavily invest in your recruitment phase. So really good interview questions are important. If you don't have some, create some like really great interview questions for your business, like standard ones that you ask. As I said, like once you take on employees, it's very expensive to get rid of them if you don't like them. So, and it's resource intensive. So one of the things that I tell all my customers is have a great set of interview questions. You guys can look at this, I'll pass this around. Some of the like the business kit stuff isn't just drafted by lawyers, but people with like practical experience. So we've used people that are like being HR managers to look at things like their emotional intelligence, Like we ask really telling questions, like our templates ask really telling questions like tell us about, I don't know, like a negative situation or whatever, they start going on a rant and you just like, and tell us when you didn't get along with your boss, or in our referee report we ask the referee, the person providing the reference, would you rehire this person? How honest are they? How trustworthy are they? How would you rate their ethics? Do you know what I mean? And when you're asking those kind of questions, you can just avoid huge problems in your business. So one of the things I really stress is like spend time recruiting and ask proper questions. And one of my most important documents is our referee report. Like asking those telling questions of referees tells a lot. So I had a business buy business kits. We have a human resource library. They bought all that, and they called me and they're like, we made a bad hire again. And I was like, did you use the referee report? I was like, I've told you guys, you need to use this referee report. And then they pull me back and say, oh my goodness, we've avoided so many situations because we called the referees and we just got, like they said that they were dishonest, they were not on time or whatever, and we just avoided a whole situation, they stole money or whatever. So calling references is like, it's like you get busy and you think, oh well, let's not worry about calling references, but that's something that you really should invest in. So yeah, one thing that we sort of stress is interview questions and reference checking is extremely important. Yeah, so is there any questions? I kind of feel like I'm talking at you guys. I kind of want to engage with you and just find out what you're wanting to know, questions, queries. Is this like information helpful for you? Am I telling you things that you already know? Have you heard this information before?
Does there need to be like a big difference between, say, contractor versus employee terms and agreements when you get them to sign off on the job role?
On the job role?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually provided in like the free packs, maybe we should talk about that for you to take away. The first document should be a contractor versus employee checklist. One thing, that's a great question actually. So one thing that you want to do before you even get to the contract phase is consider whether or not this person is going to be a contractor or employee. Now a way to do that, there's an ATO tool which we talk about. I think we're going to send this out electronically. There's an ATO tool there's a tool on the ATO website that's a contractor versus employee decision-making tool basically. So you log on to that and it asks you a bunch of questions, do they have an ADM or whatever, and it'll spit out this person is an employee, this person is a contractor. Now work cover, or the ATO, or any government department, not that work covers government department necessarily, but